maybe Death's not actually coming for our family. Because that would be crazy.
Greetings and salutations, guys. I'm here with my review of Final Destination Bloodlines, the 6th installment in the Final Destination series, but one that took a damn long time to get here because it's been 14 years since Final Destination 5, so a huge gap after we got 1 through 5 pretty consistently for several years there. But I'd say that the wait was worth it because if you were a fan of this series, I think this is a really satisfying new installment that kind of really knows what you want from this series. The people who made this movie after this long break, I think now you have fans of the series getting to come and do a movie like this. And yeah, they hit all the right notes here. There is a very set formula to the Final Destination movies as far as you have your lead character who has the premonition, starts freaking out, a few people get away from this disaster that's about to happen, and then they all start to die in crazy ways. I think first off, this movie does a really good job of spinning that format. It sticks to the format, it doesn't break the format, but it does something new with it. And in this case, that's the fact that the premonition happens in the 1960s. It's the prologue to the movie where this new tower that's been built, this girl Iris sees that it's going to collapse and everyone's going to die. And so, she does the Final Destination thing of screaming about that and saves a bunch of people. But then the brunt of the story is in the present. And Iris, for the first time in this series, the person who has the premonition is not the lead character. She's the grandmother to the lead character, who is a girl named Stephanie, played by Caitlin Santawana, who learns the hard way about what happened with her grandmother because members of her family begin to die one by one in horrible, crazy, convoluted Final Destination style deaths. And so, yeah, I think that it's just a really fun way to do something different with this formula because it's still taking the same rules as far as, death trying to correct the mistake of people escaping it and going after them. But in this case, we are decades later and death is saying, okay, this girl wasn't supposed to survive, but neither were all these people supposed to even exist. She wasn't supposed to have kids, and they weren't supposed to have other kids. And so now the bloodline is what death is after in this movie. And so, yeah, I really appreciated them taking it in this somewhat new direction while very much honoring what came before. The deaths, of course, are the bread and butter of these movies. And I think that while this movie, I wouldn't say has like, oh my gosh, it's the best deaths of the series, because there is a pretty high bar. If you look at the history of Final Destination, there are still some really clever ones. There's one in particular that I'll just say it involves a hospital. And I think that one is extremely well constructed. Again, that's the thing, right? The whole Rube Goldberg of it all. How will these things happen? What small thing will set something else into motion that will knock something else over that will ultimately result in the death? What is it going to be in a world where we're surrounded by things that can kill us? The Final Destination movies, right? They're all about teaching us that everything in our lives could be lethal. What will be the actual lethal instrument? What will actually be the moment of death? And I think in general, this movie does a very good job with that. But this one sequence in particular, I think just the way it builds, the way it delivers. They showed us this sequence at CinemaCon, actually, in Vegas a couple months ago. And it got a really great reaction. And I also understood that's why they chose that sequence, because it is so well done. I had just done a rewatch of this entire series for the podcast I co-host, the We Enjoy podcast. Here's a free plug for you. And it was really fun revisiting this series, but it also is a reminder of sort of the highs and lows and the fact that third movie, it's okay. The fourth movie's really bad. Fifth movie's a great rebound. But, these are not movies with deep characters most of the time. There's some exceptions to that. But, most of these characters are there, for a specific purpose. Just like in a lot of horror franchises. I'm wearing a Friday 13th hoodie. Like that one, too. They are there to kind of be taken out in these exciting ways. But you still want to at least have some modicum of caring about them, investment. And I think that this movie is one of the best movies on that level for sure. Which is not to say, oh my gosh, these are really deep, introspective, multifaceted characters. But that they are really fun Final Destination characters. And that the family dynamic makes it different. They're not classmates or coworkers. They have this family bond. They get to relate to each other as family. And yeah, that you enjoy watching these characters who are siblings or cousins, and they're friendly dynamic before you enjoy watching many of them die in horrible ways. That's the fun thing about horror movies, right? And I think that Caitlin Santawana and Teo Briones, I really like them as sort of the central sister-brother here in the film. And amongst a really solid group of supporting characters, I think one that really pops is Richard Harmon as Eric. This movie, like almost the entire series, except for 4, was shot in Vancouver. Always fun to watch Final Destination movie and see all of the Vancouver-based actors that appear in these movies that you've seen on TV shows, a lot of CW series. Richard Harmon's been on a million things. I know him first and foremost from The 100. He's so good at playing a likable jerk and, you know, sort of someone who's really sardonic and sarcastic, but is still very charismatic. And I think he brings that to this role here, playing an Eric with a K, though, who's the tattooed Pierce guy, works at the local tattoo parlor, and has some really fun sort of flippant responses to what's happening around him that he may or may not come to regret. But of course, when you're talking about the cast of a Final Destination movie, most of the time, that means you need to also talk about the amazing, wonderful, beloved Tony Todd in what is so sadly, you know, his final performance here, returning as William Bloodworth. And, he shot this just a few months before he passed away last year. And it's, definitely the sort of mixed emotions of seeing him because he is clearly sick while he was filming this. But they acknowledge that, they address it. And his scene, his sort of classic William Bloodworth scene, I think is really well done because they had to balance a lot in this scene. Because there was sort of this acknowledgement. I saw a Q&A with the producers after a screening I saw where they, everyone kind of knew what was going on with him. It was, not a secret that, this was near the end for him. And so they gave him this scene that needs to, pay homage to the history of this franchise and what this character's role in it has been, but also be meaningful for Tony Todd as an actor and give him something to sort of perform here of meaning and substance. And I think it really nails all that. People applauded at the screening I was at the end of the scene because it is just sort of a wonderful final bow, really, for an actor that we lost way too soon. So yeah, really appreciate what they did with him here. And also, I won't go to spoilers, but what they do with sort of the lore of Final Destination here, I really appreciated. Rewatching these movies, reinforced for me, this is not a highly serialized movie series, right? After the second film, we don't have any major characters that continue on. Bloodworth pops in and out, but it's usually for one scene. Everyone else is a new group of characters who get killed off in each movie, and then we start anew. But this movie really, again, I think that they really look at the past of the series and they make sure to acknowledge it all. So a lot of things from the past as far as the rules are brought up here and they're, acknowledged and they're addressed. And I really liked how they did that. On the creative side, I think that the directors here, which is a directing duo, Zach Lebowski and Adam Stein, they do a great job. Like I said, I think that they get the assignment in a really perfect way as far as this is what people like about Final Destination. You watch the series, the early ones, and it's so funny to see from the second one on. It's like, okay, the audience is here for these deaths. We want to wink with them. We want to have fun with them. We want to have both the tension and the dark comedy of these sequences and how they escalate. And I think these guys really know what they're doing in that regard here. The script is written by Guy Busick and Laurie Evans Taylor. Guy Busick, his background is writing movies like Scream 5 and 6, Ready or Not, Abigail. So a great background blending horror and comedy. And I think that comes into play here in a great way. John Watts, by the way, has a story by credit. John Watts, who directed the Spider-Man Tom Holland trilogy. So I thought that was fascinating. But yeah, I think that this is a movie, made with love for the franchise. And it brings it back. And it doesn't bring it back in the way we've seen with maybe Halloween or Scream in quite that reverent way. And maybe that's because it has been so loosely serialized, Bloodworth being the one big connective tissue. So it's reverent about Bloodworth and Tony Todd, which is exactly the thing it should be reverent about because the character and especially the actor deserve it. But everything else is just done with affection. Like, hey, we're bringing this franchise back and let's have fun with it. Let us, sort of pay tribute to what they've done in the past by just delivering another really fun installment that can just take this concept, which has, turned out to be a very durable one, and keep going with it. So I'm very glad to have Final Destination back. It's just it occupies such a unique place in horror franchises because there is no physical villain, no embodiment of the villain. It's just this unseen entity that is death. And yeah, the mousetrap aspect of it has been so clever and fun, even in the bad installments. Well, maybe not the fourth one as much, but for the most part, I think this has been a really strong, satisfying series, and I'm really glad to have a new installment finally. And I'm pretty hopeful. I'm going to cross my fingers we get another one that doesn't take 14 years. I'm optimistic about it. Feels like there's a pretty good amount of excitement around this movie, that it will get that audience. So we'll get Final Destination 7 in the not too distant future. All right, so those are my thoughts on Final Destination Bloodlines. If you can like and subscribe, that'd be great. Thanks a lot, guys.